Unscripted.
You know, when Sony was marketing the PlayStation 5 and Xbox was marketing the Xbox Series X, a lot of promises were made, and that's just going to be par for the course. I mean, let's just be honest about it. Whenever these companies are going to come out with something new, they're going to promise us the world. What are they going to actually deliver? I think that's going to be more of the thing that you kind of question and go, well, you know, we'll have to wait and see what they actually deliver before we can kind of get into that. But for me personally, I find it to be very interesting that, you know, we have a situation where, I mean, honestly, what's the main thing that comes to mind when you think of PS5 and Xbox Series X? I mean, both of them kind of said 8K, kind of 120 frames and things like that. To be clear, I didn't think that we would get 8K. Just the way that, you know, with the Xbox One X, you know, they were like 4K, 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 kind of shoving it down your throat, and we rarely got that as a native thing. And as time went on, less and less. I mean, they more or less, a lot of developers would just match the output of what, you know, the PS4 Pro was doing. And whether that's right or wrong, I don't really know. But, you know, they would just kind of match the output, and realistically, that's what would happen. You know, they would kind of, you know, go and do one thing, because let's be honest, these developers don't want like far better versions on something, and that's something that I think a lot of people don't really understand when it comes to these video games and things like that. But I think that the fact that, you know, the Xbox Series S has mainly been looked at as a 1080p 60 frames machine or a 1440p 60 frames machine, it's a little bit odd to see that, you know, the PS5 would be getting a, you know, 1080p 60 games. Obviously, Returnal, which I did a video about that, and there seems to be, you know, other games along those ways. And it got me into thinking, because I was arguing with some Xbox fanboy on Twitter the other day about this, and he just was going on and on about how 1080p 60 frames wasn't a next generation title. Now, let me just be honest with you guys real quick. I'm playing Returnal. I'm playing it on my CX OLED. You know, it's really good TV, great TV, best TV I've ever owned. And the game looks phenomenal. Like, with all the effects and lighting and all that kind of stuff and ambiance, they really did a good job of bringing home this, like, next generation feel. Of course, the controller is a big part of that. It has some of the best sound I've ever heard in a game, so there's that as well. Now, with that being said, we do kind of have to look around and go, well, have we been let down by, like, resolution? Is there a certain resolution that you guys feel is next generation? Is there a certain kind of resolution that you guys feel is, you know, not next generation? Is there something that would be disappointing to you? Like, for me, I didn't go into the Xbox One PS4 generation thinking 1080p. You know what I mean? Like, I know that's how most people, like, would argue about, right? I didn't really know much about that or keep up with, like, resolutions and things like that, to be quite frank with you, you know. So believe it or not, I mean, the PS3 and the you know, the Xbox 360 were doing 720p and below. You know, I thought that was just like it. Like, I didn't really think anything of it. And then when we get to the Xbox One era, you know, everybody's talking about 1080p, and I'm like, well, I didn't buy an Xbox One or a PS4 specifically for a set resolution or frame rate. Now, when it comes to this current generation, I think more for frame rate, I was expecting 60 and 120, which, you know, so far haven't really been let down by that. But even with that being said, when you start to see games come out at 1080p, you start to go, oh, well, is the PS5 weak? Is the, you know, Xbox Series X weak or whatever? You know, now we get an idea that Remnant from the Ashes on PlayStation 5 is getting an upgrade. So Remnant from the Ashes is getting a PlayStation 5 upgrade patch, according to Perfect World Entertainment. The next gen upgrade, which will go live on May 13th, will introduce two different display options. The first will favor resolution, making the game run at 4K 30 on the PlayStation 5. The second will prioritize performance, making the game run at 60 frames per second at 1080p resolution. So you're losing half your pixels to run it at the double the resolution. They said, we're incredibly excited to announce it on Thursday, May 13th. Remnant from the Ashes will be receiving a free major upgrade patch that will add the option to run the game at 4K resolution at 30 frames per second on PS5 or 1080p resolution at 60 frames on the PS5. Now, here's the really interesting thing. it's doing 1080p 60 frames on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, and Xbox Series S. So is that like a lazy job by developers, or is that just a crummy port? Is that like, something that, us as fans should complain about? Is it, like exactly how should this be? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't really understand what the deal is. But anyway, on May 13th, Remnant from the Ashes will make its debut on the Microsoft Store and become part of Xbox Game Pass library, complete with crossplay support. Also on May 13th, Remnant from the Ashes will be available on there as well, which is something to look forward to. But it is available on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One and PC, etc., etc. Third-person survival action shooter set in a post-apocalyptic world overrun by monstrous creatures. As one of the last remnants of humanity, you'll set out alone or alongside up to 2 other players to face down hordes of deadly enemies and epic bosses to try and carve a foothold, rebuild, and retake what was lost. So I've never played the game. I think I have it. They gave it away on PlayStation at one particular point, so I do have that as well. Now on the Xbox side, I think it's fine. But do you guys think it's a little bit odd that even on the Series S, they're going to be running this thing 1080p 60, right? Like, I don't understand how on the S it can run 1080p 60, but it's also 1080 60 on the PS5 and Xbox Series X. It seems like that's kind of a waste to me personally. So anyway, it's just one of those things that kind of, I guess, like it bugs me a little bit, but it isn't something that that maybe it's like a game breaker or anything like that. But it is just a little bit confusing because we're seeing stuff like this, and just for me personally, I think that it's just one of those things that everything kind of happens for a reason or whatever. And I'm looking at this and I'm going, hey, you know what? I just think that maybe that these consoles can do a little bit better than what we're actually getting, and maybe it's just a lazy developer. Now I think, like, I've never heard of this developer before. Well, I have heard of these these situations with the game itself. I've heard of, but I haven't really heard of the other parts of this. So again, it could be something where they're taking a little bit behind. They're a little bit behind on what's going on, but I don't know. For me personally, it is one of those things where, I'm just kind of looking at it and I'm going, hey, you know what? This is a very interesting topic and a very interesting situation, and I do hope that we continue to see some things come out of this. But for me personally, I don't really have a set resolution or anything like that. Returnal looks great. I haven't played Remnant from the Ashes. Maybe I'll boot it up, but anything seems to run pretty good with a smooth 60 frames. And and I hope to see that that things continue to go that way. I love the 60 frames. I love the 120. I know people get cynical about it when I bring it up, because I did get Mass Effect Legendary Edition on my Xbox Series X, specifically because it does 1440p 120 frames on the Series X, and it can only do 60 frames on PS5. And a lot of people maybe get salty over that or whatever, but that's the power of the backwards compatibility there. And as long as that's happening, I feel like that's a big advantage for Xbox. I know we're not going to see 120 frames versus 60 frames on a new game, but something like that, it's still like a game where I want the best performance I can get. And so it looks like that's going to be on the Xbox Series X, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm not too hurt by that anyway, because when I originally played through those games, it was on Xbox, and so I'm kind of, as terms of my memory towards it and everything, it's all basically Xbox anyway for that, so it's not as big a deal. But I do wish that Sony would kind of fix that up and kind of get things going in a good way as well for that game. So I do hope that happens, and I hope that everybody understands where I'm coming from with this. I don't have a particular set resolution or set goal when it comes to Xbox or anything like that. I just think that it's just one of those things where, for gamers, they might have something differently than I do in terms of how they feel about this stuff. And the main reason being is just because, again, we all just have these kind of feelings about these kind of things, and for me, it's always just been, I want things to play the best that they can, and hopefully that continues to actually be something that continues to go forward. I would really love you know, to see that continue to kind of grow and continue to be, you know, something amazing for gamers everywhere, is just to have the best possible experiences. And you know, a lot of people don't know this about me, but you know, I have twin stepsons, you know, and you know, it was funny because growing up, for me personally, I was like, you know, one of those people that you know, my family never had a ton of money or anything, and you know, we don't have a ton of money now either, but I never got consoles on launch days or anything like that. But the very interesting part to that was that, you know, as far as I could tell, you know, it was just nice to get them. They got Series S's for Christmas, and you know, it was just nice to be able to do that, to give somebody, you know, new a console. You know, when it comes out, you know, and I think that that's pretty cool. So again, like, I think that there's, you know, so much good going on with gaming right now, and it just excites me to no end, and I'm looking forward to it continuing to go on and things like that. But anyway, I digress. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. I'm Crapgamer. This has been Crapgamer Reviews. I hope you guys all had a great day. Rack 'em up. Game on. Crapgamer out.
Unscripted.